Omissions and flagrant inaccuracies in the guidebooks and the travel literature.
This first one takes place in Melbourne, Australia.
After dumping my bags at Melbourne's Woolloomooloo Inn, a Best Western knockoff near the center of town, I amble down Swanston Street to the waterfront, the Yarrow River, taking in the Aussie scene. A fly lands on my lip. I swat it away. Crossing Bourke Street, I spot the stone facade and copper dome of Melbourne's historic Flinders Street train station. Skyscrapers hover in the distance. Here we have the Flinders Street train station. We've got stone facade, copper dome, and we've got some skyscrapers hovering in the distance. Another fly, another swat. A woman in a suit exits the train station and waves. Do I know her? A tattooed girl on a cell phone waves too. Then a guy with a skateboard. Something tunnels in my nose. Something skitters in my underwear. Flies are collecting on me as if I were a rotting carcass. I join everyone around me, cursing, waving, and swatting. I flee down Flinders Street and duck into the Melbourne Aquarium. Animal feeding time begins in 5 minutes. Then I notice the admission price, $25. Outside, the flies are feeding. I've just traveled through Southeast Asia, a land of deadly mosquitoes and terrifying diseases. A few Western bugs shouldn't faze me, but my t-shirt is now a vibrating vest of flies. I run bobbing and weaving by a movie theater. $12 for a Mel Gibson flick. I'm Jewish. We don't pay retail for Mel Gibson movies. Back at the Woolloomooloo Inn, I confront the hotel glass clerk as if she were somehow to blame. What's with the flies? I thought Australia was a civilized country. She says nothing and hands me a tourist info card entitled The Australian Bushfly. Highlights. From October through January, bushflies are common in Melbourne. The insects feed on bodily fluids, tears, sweat, saliva, and mucus. Bushflies do not bite or sting. They lay their eggs in animal dung, not on humans. What a relief. The Aussie salute, a waving motion used by locals to repel the flies. Suggestion. Wear a hat with a mesh net that covers the face. A sign behind the desk clerk advertises mesh net hats with the Woolloomooloo logo for $30. I don't pay retail for hats with logos. There was no mention in any of the guidebooks or any of the travel literature about Australian bushflies. Still, there was one thing I feared more than being buried alive by Australian bushflies. I'll get to that a little later. Actually, this is more than an inaccuracy. It's not quite a lie, but it's a flagrant mistake. This was in Lonely Planet. The guidebooks, they all recommend in Southeast Asia you can stay at a hostel, or you could stay at something called a guest house. When I think of when I hear the word guest house, I was thinking, maybe like a Vermont bed and breakfast. Something with exposed beams and a pillow-top mattress. And maybe, for breakfast, they serve you blueberry pancakes with authentic maple syrup. My first guest house in Phnom Penh, I check in and, okay, this is called the King Guest House. And this was a Lonely Planet recommendation. Let me read you the review of the King Guest House. Elvis lives on in Phnom Penh, in name at least. The range of rooms is as wide as the king's girth in the later years of his life. And there is a huge restaurant and travel center downstairs. Lonely Planet. Let me read you my experience at the King Guest House. It's after midnight, and the King lobby is secured by a locked metal gate. I can just see a night watchman snoozing in a hammock draped with a ripped mosquito net. I tap on the gate. The man jumps up to let me in. I tip him $1. He gives me a little bow and climbs back into the hammock. As I start towards the darkened stairs, something lumbers around a couch, bolts past the hammock, and settles under a melamine end table. The creature is too large to be a squirrel and too small to be a Rottweiler. I crouch for a better look. It's a rat, a half-bald rat. I follow the expert's advice for encounters with Cambodian wildlife and look for threatening gestures. Teeth gnashing, hair bristling, back arching, foot drumming, growling, ear flattening, tail between the legs, backward earth flinging with hind feet. The night watchman snores. The rat remains still, watching me. I check for foaming mouth, cowering pups nearby, teardrop tattoos around the eyes. All clear, but the bald spot bothers me. I tiptoe to the staircase, giving the rat a wide berth. Stay, I whisper. The night man doesn't stir. But you don't have to take my word for it. Anybody heard of this book? This came out soon after I got back. It's called Do Travel Writers Go to Hell? And this book is about a Lonely Planet writer, goes to Brazil. So apparently the way it works is Lonely Planet gives these writers a budget so they can go visit all these places and recommend places to stay and things to do and places to eat. Well, this particular writer, he's supposed to cover large portions of Brazil. Gets down to Brazil, and the first week or so, he blows all his money. So he hasn't gone very far, hasn't seen much of Brazil, and hasn't reviewed much. He's out of money, and he still has all this terrain to cover. So he
Makes stuff up.